The jungle echoes with a powerful roar as the tigress leaps out from the shadows. She is wounded, but still strong. Her rage is unstoppable. Nets are thrown, spears are raised. But she doesn't give up. Her courage shakes the forest. But how did the hunters find the tigress and her cubs? Let's go back 1 month earlier, to a small village in the Sundarbans. The air smells of earth, and the songs of jungle birds fill the sky. This is a place where mangrove forests stretch endlessly and rivers twist like snakes across the land. A place of beauty, but also of struggle. In this village lived an old woman named Mala. Mala knew hard work well. Every morning, as the sun rose, she would walk to her small field. Her hands were rough, marked by years of labor under the burning sun. Her back ached. Her legs trembled, but she never complained. She couldn't afford to. There was no one else to help her. Not far away, sitting lazily under a tree, her son rested. He was young and strong, but he didn't like the fields or the jungle. He dreamed of the city, of its lights, of easy money, of a life without sweat or dirt. "Ma," snapped Raju sharply. "I need money. I'm going to the city." Mala stopped, wiped the sweat from her face with her sari, and looked at her son. Her heart heavy. She had heard this before. Raju often spoke about the city, about how he would make a fortune and come back a rich man. But Mala knew. She knew the city was as full of promises as it was of disappointments. And still, she could never say no to him. She simply couldn't. With a sigh, she reached into her sari and pulled out a small bundle of rupees, her modest savings earned from selling herbs and fruits at the market. "Here," she said, handing him the money. "But be careful, Raju. The city is not like our village. It's a dangerous place." Raju took the money without a word of thanks. He stood up, brushed the dust off his clothes. "Don't worry, Ma. I'll come back. Rich, you'll see." Mala wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe her son would one day return. That he would finally take care of her, the way she had always taken care of him. But deep down, she knew the truth. She had seen the look in his eyes. Not love, but indifference. Without a single glance back, Raju walked away. His footsteps crackled on the dry earth. Mala watched him go, her heart breaking with every step he took. She wanted to call out, to beg him to stay, but the words stuck in her throat as Raju disappeared into the distance. Mala remained alone in the field. The sun burned on her frail shoulders. Behind her, the jungle cast long, dark shadows across the ground. For the first time in years, Mala truly felt alone. But she didn't cry. She couldn't. There was too much to do. Taking a deep breath, she bent down and picked up her hoe, her fingers trembling as she returned to the soil. The village around her was silent, broken only by the rustling of leaves in the wind. After Raju left, Mala had no choice. She had to venture deeper into the jungle. The fields no longer provided enough food, and the market was too far to reach every day. So she began searching for ways to survive. Fruit, herbs, anything she could gather to sell or eat. The villagers had warned her. "The jungle isn't safe for an old woman," they said. "The tigers, the snakes, the spirits, they'll hurt you if you're not careful." But Mala wasn't afraid. Or rather, she didn't have the luxury of fear. Hunger and loneliness pushed her forward, step by step, into the shadows of the trees. One afternoon, as the sun stood high in the sky, Mala ventured deeper into the jungle than she ever had before. The sounds of the village were now far behind her. She could hear only the rustling of leaves, the songs of birds, and occasionally, in the distance, the roar of a tiger. She moved carefully, her eyes scanning the ground for herbs. Her ears were alert for the slightest sign of danger. Then she heard it, a low, painful growl. Mala froze, her heart pounding as she turned toward the sound. Just a few steps away, lying on the ground, was a tigress. But this was no ordinary tigress. She was massive. Her golden fur was smeared with mud and stained with blood. Her sides rose and fell heavily with each breath, and her eyes, those strong, piercing eyes, were filled with pain. Mala's first instinct was to run. Every part of her screamed to turn back, to flee, but something held her in place. Maybe it was the way the tigress's growl softened when their eyes met. Maybe it was the way her body trembled. Not with anger, but with exhaustion. Or maybe it was the faint cry coming from her swollen belly. The tigress was pregnant, and she needed help. Mala's fear slowly faded, replaced by something else. compassion. She had spent her life caring for others, even those who didn't deserve it. And now, before her, was a creature in distress. Slowly and carefully, Mala moved toward the tigress. She spoke softly, her voice shaking but soothing. "Stay calm. I won't hurt you." The tigress growled again, but weakly, almost like a plea. Mala knelt beside her, her hands trembling as she reached out. She saw the wound on her side, deep and bleeding, and her belly. It was moving. The cubs were stirring, ready to be born. Mala understood what she had to do. She used her knowledge of plants, leaves and roots gathered from around her, and crushed them into a paste to stop the bleeding. As she treated the wound, she whispered gentle words, her hands delicate despite her fear. And Asim, the tigress, never took her eyes off Mala. Her gaze was neither hostile nor suspicious, just watchful, almost grateful. Then the moment came. The tigress let out a low, deep cry. Mala understood. The cubs were coming. With trembling hands, she helped deliver two small, helpless creatures, their fur still wet, their eyes closed. The tigress licked them gently, her movements slow and tender, as if silently thanking Mala with each stroke of her tongue. Back at Mala's small hut on the edge of the village, the sun was just beginning to rise, painting the sky in soft pink and gold. Mala was inside, preparing her morning meal, when she heard a sound outside, a low rumble. But it wasn't threatening. It was soft, almost curious. Intrigued, Mala stepped outside, and her heart skipped a beat. In the gentle light of dawn stood the tigress. At her side, wobbling on unsteady legs, were two tiger cubs. The tigress's golden eyes met Mala's, and for a moment neither of them moved. Mala's first instinct was to retreat inside and shut the door. But she didn't. Something stopped her. The tigress didn't growl. She didn't seem ready to attack. She simply stood there, still, her cubs nuzzling against her, as if she had come to say thank you. Carefully, Mala took a step forward. The tigress didn't move. Another step. Then another, until Mala was close enough to see the faint scars along her side. The wound she had once treated. "You came back?" Mala whispered, her voice trembling with surprise. The tigress let out a soft growl, almost like a purr, then nudged one of her cubs forward. The little one stumbled toward Mala, its tiny paws sinking into the soft earth. Mala knelt down, her hands shaking, and extended her fingers. The cub sniffed them, then licked them with its rough tongue. In that moment, something changed. The fear melted away. In its place bloomed a warmth Mala hadn't felt in years. She looked up at the tigress, and for the first time in a long while, she smiled. From that day forward, the tigress became part of Mala's life. Every morning, she waited outside the hut, her cubs playing at her feet, and every morning, Mala stepped out to greet them, her heart filled with a joy she thought she had lost. The tigress was not just a visitor, she was a guide. She led Mala deep into the jungle, to places the old woman had never dared to go. Hidden groves filled with ripe fruit, streams teeming with fish, and clearings where the rarest herbs grew, with the tigress always by her side. Mala no longer struggled to find food. Her baskets were always full. She always had enough to eat. But it was more than that. The tigress became her companion, her friend. They walked side by side through the jungle, the two tiger cubs running ahead, their playful growls echoing through the trees. Mala spoke to the tigress as if she understood every word. And sometimes, it seemed like she truly did. One evening, as the sun set and the jungle quieted, Mala sat outside her hut, sharing a meal with the tigress. She broke off a piece of bread and tossed it to the cubs, laughing as they pounced on it clumsily, full of joy. The tigress watched her, her golden eyes soft and calm in the fading light. For the first time in years, Mala felt peace. The loneliness, that heavy burden she had carried in silence, was gone. It was replaced by a sense of belonging she never thought possible. But peace, as we will soon see, never lasts forever. The sun stood high in the sky, casting sharp shadows on the dusty paths. The villagers went about their daily tasks when a group of strangers appeared, bringing unease to the once peaceful community. These strangers were hunters, rough men, weathered by life, with sun-darkened faces and eyes shining with greed. They carried spears, nets, and traps. They moved with confidence. Among them, looking uneasy and out of place, was Raju. Yes, Raju. Mala's son, the one who had gone to the city dreaming of wealth, and had returned empty-handed, burdened only with disappointment. Raju was not leading the hunters. He was merely their guide. He claimed to know the jungle. He knew there was a tigress, but nothing about her cubs. He didn't know she had been wounded, helped, and loved. He only knew that an adult tiger could fetch a high price from the right buyer. The villagers watched as the hunters set up camp on the edge of the village. Whispers of concern spread quietly. Here, tigers were sacred, and the jungle was not a place to be violated without consequence. But the hunters didn't care. They were here for one thing only: profit. Meanwhile, Mala was in her small hut grinding herbs to sell at the market. When she heard a noise outside, curiosity led her to step out, and she froze. Standing before her was a group of hunters. He looked different, thinner, harder. His gaze was restless, uneasy. He spoke to the men with a nervous tone, his eyes constantly shifting. Mala felt the worry rise in her chest. She moved closer, silently, staying hidden in the shadows. She strained to hear their conversation. What she heard chilled her to the bone. Raju was speaking in a low, trembling voice. "The tigress is deep in the jungle." "She's huge," he added. "The biggest I've ever seen. She'll fetch a lot of money." One of the hunters gave a cruel smile. "You sure you can take us to her?" Raju hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "I know the way, but we have to be careful. The jungle is dangerous." The hunters laughed, rough, mocking laughter. "We're not afraid of a few trees," sneered one of them. "Let's go." Mala's hands trembled as she clutched the edge of her sari. She couldn't let this happen. She couldn't let them harm the tigress, her friend, her companion. But what could she do? She was just an old woman facing a group of armed men, and yet she had to try. As the hunters gathered their weapons and started toward the jungle, Mala slipped away, her heart pounding. She had to warn the tigress. She moved as fast as her old legs could carry her, breathing hard, panicked. The jungle loomed ahead, dark, menacing. Mala plunged into it, running between the trees, her eyes desperately scanning for any sign of the tigress, calling out in a shaky whisper. "And now, where are you? Please, you have to hide. They're coming." But the jungle was vast, and the tigress could be anywhere. Mala ran deeper still, stumbling over roots and stones, her arms scratched by low branches. Behind her, the voices of the hunters grew louder and louder. Time was running out. The hunters moved quickly, setting traps and raising their weapons. Excitement gleamed in their eyes. Raju followed slightly behind, his face a mix of nervousness and greed. He wasn't the leader, he was just a guide, a desperate man willing to do anything for a bit of money. Finally, the hunters found the tigress's den hidden deep in the jungle, a peaceful place, bathed in sunlight filtering through the leaves. But today, it was anything but peaceful. The hunters crept forward slowly, their eyes shining with greed. In front of the den, 2 tiger cubs played innocently near the entrance. The cubs were so young, their fur still soft and golden, their wide eyes full of innocence. They didn't understand the danger. Not until it was too late. The hunters moved in, nets sliced through the air, snapping like whips. The cubs cried out, their small growls filled with fear, as they were captured and thrown into a cage. One of the hunters whistled, eyes gleaming with excitement. "Look at these little ones," he said, his voice dripping with greed. "Perfect, young, healthy. They'll sell for twice what the big one would." The others nodded, cruel smiles spreading across their faces. "Forget the mother," one of them said. "These cubs are the real prize." Raju stood off to the side, uneasy. He hadn't known about the cubs. He had only known about the tigress, the one he thought would make him rich. But now, seeing the hunter's excitement, a flicker of hope returned to him. Maybe this would all work out after all. Then the jungle erupted. The tigress, the mother, burst from the shadows like a storm. Her golden eyes burned with fury. Her massive body was tense, ready to strike. She let out a roar that shook the trees, a sound so powerful it chilled even the bravest hunters to the bone. But the men were ready. They surrounded her, spears raised, faces set with grim determination. The tigress attacked, her claws slicing through the air, her fangs bared and threatening. She was a raw force, a protector, a mother defending her young. But she was alone. One of the hunters hurled a net that wrapped around her legs. Another struck her with the blunt end of a spear, forcing her to the ground. She roared again, a cry of pain but also of defiance. Still, the hunters didn't stop. That's when Mala arrived. She burst into the clearing, out of breath, her face streaked with sweat and tears. She saw it all: the cubs in the cage, the tigress on the ground surrounded, and Raju standing off to the side, a trembling weapon in his hands. "Stop!" cried Mala, her voice breaking. "Please, stop!" The hunters paused for a moment, turning toward her with cold, empty stares. But Raju looked at her, and his face twisted into a sneer. "What are you doing here?" he snapped, his tone sharp and disrespectful. "This isn't your business. Go home." Mala stepped forward, her eyes pleading. "Raju, this isn't the way. She's not just a tigress. She's a mother. She's my friend. Please don't do this." Raju rolled his eyes, annoyed. He waved her words away. "She's just an animal," he said coldly. "And those cubs in the cage are worth a fortune." Excitement rose in him. The thought of becoming rich blinded him. "This is what you always wanted, isn't it?" he snapped. "For me to succeed? To lift us out of poverty?" But Mala shook her head, her voice trembling, full of sorrow. "No, Raju. I never wanted money. All I ever wanted was for you to be a good man. What you're doing is wrong. You're hurting the animals, you're hurting me, you're hurting yourself." Raju froze for a moment. His face hardened. Annoyance turned into cold anger. "Stop! That's enough. Move aside," he ordered. "You're in my way." But Mala didn't move. She stepped in front of the tigress, arms spread wide, shielding her with her own body. "Please, I beg you, Raju. You'll regret this for the rest of your life. Put the gun down now." For a brief moment, Raju hesitated. Doubt flickered in his eyes, but greed took over. He shook his head, his voice turned sharp and cold. "No, move! I'm not giving up." Suddenly, the tigress broke free from the net. She was wounded, her golden fur streaked with blood. But she was not defeated. She lifted her head and saw Raju. Her eyes locked onto his and she growled. A low, deep rumble. She knew him. The man who had led the hunters to her den. The man who had put her cubs in danger. Her muscles tensed, her body coiled, ready to strike. Raju froze. His face turned pale. He stepped back, stumbled over a root, and fell to the ground. "Help!" he shouted, his voice shaking. "Someone, do something!" But before the tigress could strike, Mala burst into the clearing again, out of breath, her face streaked with tears and sweat. She saw the scene, the cubs locked in the cage, the hunters regrouping, and the tigress standing tall despite the pain, her eyes locked on Raju. "No!" cried Mala, her voice breaking. "Please, stop!" The tigress froze, her golden eyes turned to Mala. A heavy silence fell over the jungle, as if even the trees were holding their breath. Mala stepped forward, arms wide, placing herself between the tigress and her son. "Please," she said, her voice soft but firm. "Don't hurt him. He's my son. I know he's done wrong, but I beg you, spare him." The tigress growled, a deep, rumbling sound, filled with pain and fury. But she didn't attack. She looked at Mala, and for a moment, it was as if she understood. She stepped back. Her body remained tense, but her gaze softened. Raju, however, didn't see mercy. He saw weakness. His fear twisted into rage, his despair into cruelty. He sprang to his feet, eyes fixed on the rifle one of the hunter leaders had dropped. Before anyone could react, he lunged for it. His hands trembled as he aimed. "Raju, no!" Mala cried, her voice shattered by despair. "Put down the gun, please." But Raju didn't listen. His face twisted into a bitter sneer. "She's just an animal. My mother is dead. She's worth more dead than alive." And before Mala could stop him, before the hunters could move, the gunshot rang out. The sound echoed through the jungle. Sharp, cold, final. The tigress let out one last heavy, guttural groan. Her body swayed, then collapsed. Her golden eyes met Mala's one final time, filled with pain, sorrow, and a strange kind of forgiveness. Mala fell to her knees beside her. Her hands trembled as she touched the tigress's still warm fur. Tears streamed down her face, but it was her heart that truly broke. Unable to bear the weight of what had just happened, the hunters, on the other hand, rejoiced. They shouted and laughed, loud, cruel voices. But Mala didn't hear them. All she heard was silence. That terrible, deafening silence, as the life faded from the tigress's eyes. The hunters left the jungle triumphant. They carried a cage. Inside, the 2 tiger cubs swayed between their arms. Raju walked behind them, his face pale, his hands still trembling. He had killed, and though he said nothing, he felt it. But greed has a way of ruining even the simplest plans. As they made their way through the thick underbrush, the hunters were already celebrating their victory. "These cubs are going to make us a fortune in the city," one of them said, his voice brimming with excitement. "We're going to be rich." But Raju was not satisfied. His eyes narrowed as he listened to their cheers. "Wait," he snapped, his voice sharp. "I'm the one who brought you here. I deserve a bigger share." The hunters stopped. Their smiles faded. The leader, a large man with a scar across his cheek, turned to Raju with a cold glare. "Maybe you showed the way," he growled. "But we did the dirty work. Don't push your luck. You'll get your share, that's it." Raju's face tightened, anger rising. "Without me, you would have never found the den. I deserve more than just a share. I want half." The hunters exchanged tense glances. The tension thickened like the air before a storm. The leader stepped toward Raju, his voice low and threatening. "You have no right to demand anything. You should be grateful we're giving you something at all." But Raju didn't back down. Greed consumed him. He spoke without thinking. "If you don't give me what I deserve, I'll go to the authorities. I'll tell them everything." The leader's eyes narrowed, and in a flash, he grabbed Raju by the collar. "You're making a big mistake," he hissed through clenched teeth. The other hunters closed in, their expressions dark and menacing. Raju realized he was alone against them all. He tried to break free, but the leader's grip was strong. In the scuffle, the cage hit the ground. The latch snapped open. The 2 tiger cubs, terrified and disoriented, bolted into the bushes. "Get them!" the leader shouted furiously. The hunters scattered in all directions, their attention now fixed on the cubs. But Raju wasn't finished. He lunged forward, wild-eyed. "They're mine!" he shouted. "I'm not leaving without them!" The hunters tried to stop him, but Raju was determined. He grabbed one of the tiger cubs and clutched it tightly, stumbling backward. "Let it go, Raju!" the leader yelled. "It's not a toy!" But Raju didn't listen. His eyes searched desperately for an escape, an exit. He took another step back. Then suddenly, his foot found nothing. Time seemed to freeze. Raju looked down. Empty space. He was at the edge of a cliff. The ground crumbled beneath his weight. His eyes widened, frozen in terror as he lost balance. The cub slipped from his arms. "No!" he screamed, his voice echoing through the jungle as he tumbled into the void. The hunters stared, frozen in horror, as Raju vanished over the edge of the cliff. His scream was suddenly cut short by the dull thud of his body hitting the rocks below. The jungle fell into a deathly silence. Only the rustling of leaves in the wind disturbed the stillness that followed. The hunters looked at one another, their faces pale, gripped by fear. "We have to get out of here," one of them whispered. "If anyone finds out what happened, we'll end up in prison." Without another word, he turned and fled. Their footsteps echoed through the jungle as they retreated, leaving behind only the memory of Raju's fall. The tiger cubs, still trembling, huddled close together in the bushes. They whimpered softly, their wide, golden eyes full of fear and confusion. Then Mala arrived. She stumbled into the clearing, her face ravaged by tears, her heart heavy with immense sorrow. She saw the scene, the empty cage, the edge of the cliff, the frightened cubs pressed together. Her legs gave out, and she collapsed to the ground, her sobs echoing through the trees. But even in her grief, Mala knew she couldn't give up. Crawling, her hands trembling, she reached the tiger cubs. She held out her arms, tears brimming in her eyes. "It's okay," she whispered, her voice broken. "I'm here now. I'll protect you." The cubs crept toward her cautiously. They rubbed their noses against her. Their soft growls warmed her heart. The silence soothed her pain. And for a moment, the jungle seemed to soften around her. The shadows lifted, as if offering her peace. The cubs, weak at first, grew quickly under Mala's care. Her hut, once silent and empty, now brimmed with life, filled with playful growls, the patter of soft paws, little feet running everywhere. They chased each other around the room, their golden fur gleaming in the sunlight streaming through the windows. Mala watched them with a smile, her heart filled with a joy she thought she had lost forever. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. The cubs grew stronger. Their play became more wild, their roars more powerful. And Mala taught them everything she knew: how to move through the jungle, how to find food, how to survive. But most of all, she taught them love. Slowly, the villagers, who once whispered with suspicion about the bond between Mala and the tigers, began to see its beauty. At first, they kept their distance. The fear of jungle predators was still too strong. But over time, they watched. They saw the loyalty the tigers had for Mala. One day, as Mala walked through the village with the tigers by her side, a pack of wild dogs approached. Hunger gleamed in their eyes. The villagers froze, faces pale, breath held. But before the dogs could get too close, the tigers stepped forward. Their powerful bodies blocked the path. They growled, a deep, rumbling sound. Their golden eyes delivered a silent but clear warning. The dogs sensed the danger and backed away. They fled, tails between their legs. The villagers, astonished, watched the scene, and slowly their fear turned into respect. They no longer saw the tigers as threats. They saw them as guardians, protectors of the jungle and of Mala. Years passed. The bond between Mala and the tigers grew even stronger. They were no longer cubs. They had become majestic, powerful creatures. Their golden coats shone in the sunlight. But despite their size, despite their strength, they remained gentle with Mala. Loyal, unshakable. Mala, now older and frailer, spent her days sitting beneath a great tree near her hut. The tigers lay at her feet like silent sentinels. She looked out over the jungle, a smile on her lips, her heart at peace, grateful for the life she had built. But all stories must one day come to an end. One evening, as the sun set and the jungle settled into sleep, Mala passed away peacefully, her hand resting on the head of one of the tigers, like a final caress, like a farewell. The villagers, now filled with love and respect for her, paid tribute. They lit candles, offered flowers, and shared stories. Stories of her kindness, her bravery, her love. The tigers, now fully grown, sat silently before the hut. Their golden eyes were full of sorrow, but they understood. Their mother, their protector, was gone. And yet, the jungle called to them, its voice soft but clear. One by one, they rose. They cast one final glance back at the hut. Then, they disappeared into the shadows of the trees. They were no longer orphans. They were children of the jungle, heirs to Mala, guardians of all that she had loved. The tigers walked into the forest, heads held high. Their powerful forms melted into the shadowed undergrowth. The villagers watched them go, hearts heavy, caught between sadness and hope. The tigers returned to the wild, not as cubs, but as guardians. They roamed the land freely. Their roars echoed through the trees, a living reminder of Mala's legacy and the sacred bond between humans and nature. And so, the story ends. The tiger, standing atop a hill, their golden coats glowing in the moonlight, let out one final roar. Mighty, majestic, a cry that rolled through the jungle and touched the hearts of all who heard it. And the moral of the story? If you help a tiger, you might just end up with jungle VIPs as your bodyguards. But be careful. One day, they might inherit your house.